Hi, Tanja. How are you?
Good.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. We've known each other for a long time. I think I met you in 2012 or 13?
14.
Maybe? 14?
14, yeah.
Is that when you moved to Chicago?
That was when, because I moved here on New Year's Eve 2013. And I started working at ABC7 on January 12th. Okay. And I saw you right before I started my job because I hadn't gotten my hair cut in a really long time and I needed it. I needed it cut for my first day on the job.
Yeah. How big a role does your hair play in your life or in what you do and in your image as a whole?
I mean, it has to be done every day. Like people say, oh, I've got to do my hair. Like it actually has to be done and styled every single day that I come to work. And
can I say that it's because you're on TV?
Yes.
You're an anchor for ABC?
Yes. So I anchor the morning news for ABC7 in Chicago. I'm on the air from 4:30 to 7 a.m. and then again from 11 to noon. So yeah, I roll into work and I have help with my makeup. Thank goodness for that. But I do my own hair every day. And I'm, because I spend so much time physically on a screen, and it's just my head that you see. So everything about my face, my hair, is what people at home take in and have opinions about. And so I do my best to try to look good.
You look great, always.
Thank you. I've had lots of practice.
You have amazing hair, so it's easy for me to do what I do. So thank you for always coming in and seeing me and seeing my team. And normally on this podcast, I do like a little segment of doing hair. Usually I would do your hair, style your hair, or cut it or something like that. But you came right from work.
It was already done, yes. Not as good as you do it, but it's done, yeah.
And we are going to do a chop soon, yeah?
I think I am ready, yes. Yeah. I have requested a chop. So nothing too crazy, just like, I don't know, maybe collarbone.
Okay, cool.
I just want to feel lighter.
Yeah.
I want to feel lifted. I want to feel lighter. I'm ready.
Good. So maybe we can share with people after we cut it, kind of a before and after.
Yeah,
is that
for
cool?
sure. Happy to.
Awesome. So anyways, so the podcast is about hair, faith, and confidence. How would you say that getting a good haircut or a good color, how does that boost or take away from your confidence on a regular basis?
It sounds vain to say this, but I mean, I'm on television. That's, my hair is how I feel about how I look sets the tone for everything else that I do because I want to not think about it.
Yeah.
And when I'm on TV, people at home who are watching don't realize this, but I am also seeing myself. There's a monitor under the camera that I look in that's a feedback monitor. And so I see what the viewer sees at home. And if I'm distracted by what I see on the camera, then it's a distraction, or oh gosh, my hair is not behaving today, or I just want to be able to focus on the job.
Yeah.
And some of the job is looking a particular way, looking the part, looking done and composed and professional. But I'd rather not think about that part. Once it's done, once I've done my makeup, done my hair, I just want to focus on the news. And on delivering the news and having a conversation with people at home.
Yeah, I would think if your hair did look out of place, it might be distracting for the audience.
Oh yeah, they'll call and tell you.
Yeah.
they do not hesitate, or they'll send you a DM on social media.
Can you, if you're like on the air, can you like fix it yourself, or you're just not supposed to do that?
Oh yeah, I can fix it.
Okay.
So I will, because I know when I'm going to be on camera and when I'm going to be off camera.
Okay.
So I could be talking to you like this, we're having a conversation, I know the camera is now on some video, I'll pick up a mirror that I have next to me and I'm going to continue to talk, but while I'm talking, I'm holding the mirror and I'm fixing that flyaway that I got, or that my makeup artist texted me to say, hair, bottom left, fix.
I think you have really great hair. And you're so pretty, so it's got to be easy to look good on camera or just in life in general. Have you noticed that? I mean, growing up, what did you hear a lot of, like when it comes to like your looks?
Wow, I think, it varies depending on what stage of life you're in. When I was a young girl, you hear a lot of positive affirmation because the only people you're really around are your parents and your family friends. Yeah. I actually, from the time that I was in, I would say from the 3rd grade through a good deal of high school, I was teased horribly for how I looked.
For being so pretty?
No, for having, for having frizzy, curly hair that I didn't know how to control. I was pleasantly plump. and people had opinions about that, and they were incredibly unkind. So when I think about my childhood and what I thought of how I looked, I don't think I ever felt like I was, like an ugly duckling or anything, but I didn't always have those messages saying, Tanya, you're beautiful, or you're beautiful just the way that you are. I think that was something that I grew into as I got older and developed more confidence. Also, we all have awkward stages.
Sure.
And I remember mine vividly.
I'm just trying to help our audience think about how their looks or how they feel about the way that they look affect their lives, right? And so for you, I would say that you're very successful, very accomplished. Do you remember a time where an insecurity or your confidence helped you get to where you're at in life today, personally or professionally? What can you tell women or young women about how they feel or the messages that they're hearing or replaying in their mind? How can that affect them in a negative way or a positive way?
I don't know that I have the answer to that. What I do know is the one belief that I have always held my entire life is that I can do anything. I credit my parents for that. My parents are both immigrants from various remote corners of the planet who moved to Canada at various times, started a family, and raised us there. And with growing success as the years went by. The life that I lived when I was a little girl, my parents were newer immigrants and, trying to lay a foundation for the family that they were going to build is very different from the life that my family had when I graduated from high school. We lived what we call the American dream, but for us it was the Canadian dream. And there was always an expectation in my home that I would succeed. I had an obligation to succeed. It's what my parents sacrificed for. It's what they moved, halfway across the world for, so that their children would have that opportunity. And there was never anything that was communicated to me that would indicate that I had any barriers that should stand in my way. That the only thing that would ever hold me back is my own effort. And so whatever it is that I have decided that I wanted to aspire to at any given time in life, whether it's where I go to college or what I do for my first job, and I ended up in something very different, but it was never a question of, do I belong here? It was a question of, how do I get here? And so I think that is something that has served me incredibly well over the years. And that comes from the inside, not the outside. And
I would say that I myself have that same type of deep-rooted confidence. And there are times moments, not many, but some, as I've gone through my life professionally and personally, where if my confidence isn't there, I kind of fall back on my faith, right? And so for me, I never end up getting too upset about anything because, like yourself, I feel like I can do anything. And that's part of the reason why I started this podcast, is because I would love to share with as many people as possible what that is, where that comes from, and can we teach that, right? And so is it a dialogue? Is it things that we hear from our parents? Because unfortunately, some kids grow up in a household where they hear negative things, right? So if those negative comments get rooted into someone, how does that affect them long term? And can we change that narrative? Can we help people understand that if you change the narrative and you start to say things in a positive way about yourself that maybe you would believe it, and then maybe you can accomplish the goals or overcome obstacles throughout your life and have a better life. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here, right? Were you conscious of that I can do anything in your mind? Did you think that? Did you say that to yourself, or it was just a feeling?
I think it's hubris. it's young hubris. Why can't I do this? Of course, there are moments of self-doubt. Anybody comes up against that. Anytime you're doing something you've never done before, that's where that, oh, can I do this, comes into your mind. I think one answer to what it is that you're looking to accomplish with teaching people to have that confidence that you have and that was instilled into me to, in this particular way when I was growing up, is the idea of practice. Everything that we do in life is an opportunity to practice something that you can build on later. I make my living, I say, reading out loud. Yeah, that's what I do for a living. I read out loud. It's essentially public speaking, performing. And when I was an angsty 13-year-old girl trying to survive teenagehood and whatever challenging circumstances I had in my personal life or at school, I figured out that I could sing.
Okay.
That I had a nice voice. That it was okay. It was good enough. It was good enough to be in the high school talent show.
Okay. Wow.
And that was where I first got up on a stage and I performed for anybody. Or even before that, I was a little girl. I was 5 years old. I have a picture of me holding a microphone. I'm 5 years old. I'm in front of 300 people in my church.
What?
Reciting poetry in Serbian. It was something we did. Yeah, my dad is Serbian, my mom is Chilean. And that was something that children were taught to perform in front of the church community. It was meaningful to the people who were there. And so I got up in front of 300 people at 5 years old and I would recite war poetry in Serbian, which is a language we spoke at home in addition to English. Okay. And so that was practice. Yeah. That was practice for the high school talent show, which was practice for emceeing this big Serbian Day picnic. I was the summer after, this is how I ended up doing what I do. The summer after I graduated from college.
Okay.
So I'm 21 years old, 22 at the time actually. I was an old graduate. And I was interviewing to become an intelligence officer.
Okay.
With the Canadian Security Intelligence Service.
Wow.
It's the Canadian version of the CIA. It's what I always thought I wanted to do. Okay. I spoke all these languages. I had a degree in government. And as I'm going through that interviewing process and signing away my rights to privacy to the Canadian government, I was asked to MC this big Serbian Day picnic because that little girl who held a microphone in her hand at age 5.
They remembered.
They remembered. And they were like, oh, she's all grown up now. She has a college degree. Let's get her up on stage and she can be our English MC for this event. And so I did that. It's like 10,000 Serbs on these picnic grounds outside of Hamilton, Ontario. And there was a representative there from the city of Hamilton who came to say, thank you all for being a vibrant part of our community. And he pulled me aside afterwards and he said, you're very good at that. Have you ever thought about getting into broadcasting? No, I hadn't. But that was my so-called light bulb moment.
Yeah.
I dropped out of the interview for CSIS and I applied to Northwestern.
Amazing.
A week later.
That gives me the chills.
I got in and I did my year-long boot camp to get my master's degree in broadcasting. And I've been on television ever since, telling people stories.
That's amazing.
But it's all, so this, if you had asked 12-year-old Tanja, are you going to be on the news in the third largest city in America for the number one television station there?
Yeah.
No, I don't know that I would have said that.
Of course.
But 13-year-old Tanja knew that 5-year-old Tanja could hold a microphone in front of an audience and wait, I have this voice that's kind of nice. Maybe I can sing in front of people. And then I can sing in front of people. Maybe I can host something for people.
Yeah.
And you build on every opportunity for practice that you have. So even if you don't have the confidence for the end goal, maybe you have the confidence for what comes next.
I'm big on positive affirmations. I've thought about everything that I have in my life presently, I wrote down as a goal. I've set a goal, an intention, everything that I have, whether it's my business, product line, my home, my family, my wife, other things that I have in my life, I wrote them down first. And I wrote it in first person as if it already happened. I wrote, I'm happily married with a beautiful family.
You really overachieved on the wife, by the way.
Thank you.
I say that only because Megan and I are very good friends.
Yes, I did. Thank you. Yeah, she's pulling the weight of this relationship. I get it. But, I willed her in my life. So,
yeah, you manifested.
So, yes, I did. So, do you believe in positive affirmations? Do you say things in first person? Do you believe the things that are in front of you that you can accomplish them? What are some goals that you have for the future and for yourself or for your family that you could share with us?
Mm-hmm. I don't have mantras so much as I do believe in naming whatever it is that you want next, that you hope, that you aspire to next.
Yeah.
So I will name what it is that I'm looking for. I usually do so very privately. It might be just with my husband or with my best friend. And this isn't a mantra per se, but I do keep little reminders in my life to stay on track. So for example, I'm not going to tell you what my password is at work.
Yes.
But my password at work is a reminder of what it is that I have in my long-term plan, what it is that I'm working for every day.
Yeah.
And so every day when I log into my computer, I have to type that reminder in.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's just that little cue to say, what can you do today to bring you closer to that? And it could be something as trivial as sending a singular email, putting one thing on the calendar. But it's my everyday reminder for whatever it is that I have named. And I have this tradition that I've started with my family when we travel, because I'm passionate about travel. I love it. It's one of the great joys of my life. People say, what do you like to do outside of work? I like to get on a plane and I like to go somewhere new.
Me too.
I love it. I love exploring new places. I love trying different foods. And so this tradition that I started, it was with my husband, I think when we were dating.
Okay.
I bought a postcard wherever it was that we were. We might have been in London or in Paris. And on the back of the postcard, I made a list. I said, all right, let's make a list of 5 places we want to visit together. And so every time I travel, the list gets modified, or now if I'm traveling with one of my kids, I'll make a list with that kid or with those 2 kids or all 3 kids. And they're there with me. Like, where are we going to go together as a family?
Yeah.
And we write that out and I keep it in a box at home. And sometimes, if you pull out the postcard, you can be like, oh my gosh, we checked all these places off. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And I think that type of kind of visual cue, that writing something down, making a tradition out of it, the way I do when I travel, I think it can be applied more broadly.
Yeah.
Or just what I've started doing as I get older and have trouble remembering things is I come up with a lot of ideas. It's usually ideas about something that I want to write, a story I want to tell, or a project that I want to pursue for a special piece on the news or a special streaming special.
Yeah.
I've just started writing it down or making a voice note or putting it in my phone, because it's a visual reminder of, hey, there's this thing you want to do. What can you do to get closer to it?
Yeah. And how often do you circle back and try to check up on your progress?
It varies.
Yeah.
Depends on what's happening in my life. It could be months.
Yeah.
Could be months, could be a year. But sometimes it inspires me to come back to it. Sometimes it sparks a different creative idea that then gets seen through to completion right then and there. I'll get the ball rolling on it, and I come away with this project or this piece or this series that I'm really proud of.
Are you amazed at how far that young woman came from the stage at the picnic?
I'm proud. I'm certainly proud of what I've achieved out of necessity. I mean, I'm so privileged to do what I do, and so I think having that pride is a critical part of the gratitude that I carry with me.
Yeah.
For the platform that I have, for the stories that I get to tell that people share with me. I am aware of how rare it is to do what I do and to do it at this level in the way that I do it. I don't know. I think that little girl or that angsty teenager, dubbing songs off the radio, trying to hit record just as the DJ stops talking. I think she would be really proud. I think she'd be like, wow, we did that?
Yeah.
That's really cool. And at the same time, I don't know that she would be completely surprised.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember ever thinking that I can't do something.
Right. And I guess you have plans for the future.
I do,
Maybe some are too secretive, or maybe it's part of you being a CIA agent. You can't talk about it.
Yes, being a journalist is actually my cover, and I did in fact go ahead and become an intelligence officer.
Yes.
Yep.
We'll never know. You talked about being at church, singing in church, being the MC for a church picnic. Yeah. How big a role does faith play in your life?
I grew up in the Serbian Orthodox Church. I have spent much of my adult life actually attending church in the Catholic Church for a number of reasons. But I mean, masses are very similar, nearly identical. One being in English, the other one not. And it is comfortable. It is comforting to be there. I think being in that space brings me back to that gratitude that I carry with me. And you said that when you are on those rare moments when your confidence is shaken, or you doubt for a split second that there's something that maybe you can't achieve, you turn to your faith. I think my faith has been most helpful to me in times of great distress. When, when terrible things have happened, when you feel like you've exhausted any avenue for action, or perhaps you don't have the support in your life that you need at that moment, all that's left is your faith. And what a beautiful thing to be able to turn to whatever it is that your spirituality points you toward, whether that's a God or not, and to be able to say, I put my hands up to you. You pray. Give me the strength to get through this. Help me to find a path forward, whatever it is. Because I mean, I have this window into all of these terrible things that happen in the world. It's my job to tell people about them. I mean, the counterpoint to that is I also get to see miracles every day. I get to see amazing, wonderful things happen. But a lot of my job is the bad stuff. Yeah. And so it is important to me. It's been valuable to me to have that backbone, that faith that will always catch you in some way, shape, or form, no matter how grief-stricken you are, or how lonely you are. That's when I have found it to be the most impactful, the most helpful.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we're very similar in that sense, and maybe that's why we connected. As soon as we met, it was like
because
instant.
We love great hair.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. You made my job look easy. You made me look good. So thank you for that. There's a lot of talk about, different religions and God and the universal power and all that stuff. And for me, I was raised Catholic. I would like to think that I'm very spiritual. I pray. I pray to God, and I think He is present in my life. I pray to all my dead relatives, and if I really need some, I go to all of them, and And last year was like the most difficult time that I went through professionally, because of like having to move my salon and not knowing where I was going to go, and my lease was up, and
you'd built this successful business that was, literally cemented in this salon that you built from scratch. I mean, I remember you started construction on the salon right around the time you and I started working together, because when I first came to you, you were still on Hubbard Street.
Yep.
And you had these grand dreams of building out this space. I remember, it's a story, George, it's a story that I tell a lot. When people that I'm close with, that I care about, are in a position professionally where they have this thing that they're aspiring to, but it takes a big leap to get there, I conjure you.
You do?
I do. Because I remember you saying to me, I don't have the stylists yet to fill space. I don't yet have, if I can say so, I don't yet have the revenue in order to sustain a space in the most expensive block in the city of Chicago. But you said to me, I know that if I build here, I will, if you build it, they will come mentality.
Yeah.
And so I've given that, I've doled out that advice to people that I love, who are trying to find that next step in their careers. And I've said to them, sometimes you have to just go ahead and take that leap that is beyond where you think you're ready to be right now, because if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
Be like George.
Thank you. I've told people as well, like, without having the education, the money, the connections, and getting to where I'm at, not that I'm that far in life professionally, but I do have what some might say is a successful business. And, I've always believed that I could do it. Why not, as I say,
You do say that a lot.
I do. Why not?
Let's cut hair. All right, let's cut your hair. Why not?
Why not? I don't have time to mess around. Like, let's just do it. But yeah, when I met you in 2013, I probably was starting to build up the new, 14, sorry, to build up the new salon that we moved into in 2015.
Like a year later.
Yeah.
I remember the grand opening.
Yeah. And then 10 years later, the lease was up. I wasn't going to renew my lease. I was working on looking for new space, trying to put a deal together. Everything was falling through. The closer I got to the end of my lease, the harder it got at times, and I had a few moments at like 2 a.m. where, if the deal fell through that day, and that night after a long day of work, and being stressed out and thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, God, are you hearing me? Right? Because I got to the point where I was praying. Right, I was praying a lot, because
you're like,
the confidence.
I reached the bottom.
Yeah, I reached the bottom. So like the confidence, it was there. It was there enough to allow me to go to work every day, do what I have to do, connect with my team, connect with my clients, give them a great haircut, and still manage that in a good way and successful way that made people happy and made them feel like I was there for them, because I'm always there for people. But in moments when I wasn't at work, and if I got some bad news about a space that fell through, those moments were difficult. But I knew that things would work out. I didn't know how. I really didn't. And it's like walking into a room blindfolded. You just don't know what to expect. But for me, and again, this is the reason why I'm here, is to try to share with people the things that I've gone through and the techniques that I've used in order to accomplish the goals that I've set out to accomplish, right? Or, trusting my intuition, trusting the feelings that I was going through. I had to believe that it was meant to be, right? Because maybe in a different situation, I would have felt, George, you better do something instead of wait. But what I was hearing from my intuition, and after prayer or through meditation, would just be to wait. And so I had to trust that, even though I had a full team of people that
we're counting on you to find a solution.
and they were really nervous, and they were thinking
I'm sure they were really nervous.
They're like, George, should we be looking for a new job? And I was like, no, it's going to be fine. Even though I didn't really know, you know.
I've heard you say that a lot over the years.
Yeah.
You say it, I definitely heard you say many times in many different, it'll be fine. It's all going to be fine. And it is. It's a George Gonzalez makes it fine, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I do, you know, I think that is a credit to you that, yes, of course, your employees were nervous and they were asking you these questions, but ultimately they put their faith in you.
Yeah.
Because they have, you know, they've watched you say, oh, it's going to be fine. And you make sure that it's fine. It's not blind faith. I mean, we have faith, but it's not blind faith.
I was working on it.
You're still taking steps toward the end goal.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, they put their faith in you because they had that experience, knowing that you've got their backs.
Yeah.
And that you're not going to allow yourself to fail.
I don't. Yeah. It's something that, I mean, I've also shared with people that failure is never an option, right?
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. So we do what we have to do in order to survive and get through something, at the same time as setting goals, setting intentions, and try to striving for more. Not more in like I'm not grateful more, but like, I just want to have a nice home. I want to have a nice family. I do love to travel just like you do. And I feel like I'm trying to make up for things that I didn't have as a kid. You know, there's wounds there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched, you know, my dad is, we joke, my dad didn't have shoes until he was 10 years old. I mean, the village that he was born in Bosnia, there are more goats than there are people. Oh
my goodness.
And my father has built, you know, in this trade that he started to do when he moved to Canada as a 24-year-old non-English speaking immigrant. You know, my dad started as a sheet metal worker, and now he has probably the most successful company in Canada doing what it was that he started as an apprentice for. And a lot of what drives my dad has been that desire to build a life that is filled with things that he didn't have when he was little. You know, he grew up in a single room stone home where they would heat bricks in the fire and bring it to bed with them. And I mean, it is so vastly different from the life that he lives now and the life that he gave us.
Yeah.
Especially for my younger siblings who are much younger than I am. So, you know, I got to be there for the early years. But it gave me my work ethic. And
built character.
You know, I've never been afraid of work. And it's because I watched my dad grind in order to build what he successfully built.
Are there any things that you want to share with the audience? To recap all the things that we touched on?
To recap all the things.
Yeah, again, to like, if you can just squish it all together and wrap it up in one little present for people in order to help them get through tough times or overcome obstacles, or I think you did say it though, getting a job, like you're not, if you can get, don't think of like the end result, but if you can just get to from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, having enough confidence or faith to get to that next step. But
it's all about practice. Just every time you practice that thing that you're scared of, especially with public speaking. You know, I teach sometimes at Northwestern for one of my old professors. And, you know, students will say, oh my gosh, I don't know how you do it. Like, don't you get nervous? Yeah, of course I get nervous. We all get nervous. But the only difference between me and you, the student, is that I have more practice doing it anyway. Even when I'm nervous, even when I'm scared, and there are still environments that, you know, where I don't get scared in front of a camera anymore. This is what I do every day.
Right.
But in front of a live audience,
spooky.
I don't do that as much. And I can still do it confidently, and I do it well, but I still get a little clammy.
Yeah.
You know, but I have practiced going for it anyway.
Yeah.
And so all you need to do is to continue to practice going for it.
Yeah.
And that's broadly applicable, not even in just one skill like public speaking. Just practice doing things that make you uncomfortable,
Yeah.
that serve a goal for you, serve an end purpose.
Yeah, that's
And the more
great.
you practice that, the better you are at doing whatever it is that has to be done, despite fear, doubt,
Yeah.
whatever it is that stands in your way.
Yeah, I've talked about commitment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about practice, they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because if you don't commit to something, you're never going to be able to practice it enough to get good at it.
I would challenge you and I would say, commit to it today. And then tomorrow, commit to it again.
Yeah.
Because I think when people think about committing to a goal,
Mm-hmm.
it could be anything. It could be forming an exercise habit. It could be quitting alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about committing to something forever,
It's overwhelming.
it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Of course it is. So commit to it today.
Yeah.
Commit to it today. And then tomorrow, choose to commit to it again.
I love that.
And the longer that you do that, the easier it is to imagine that this is a lifelong commitment. I'm not going anywhere from this.
Yeah.
I do have a story that I want to tell before we wrap up.
Yes.
When I first moved to the city, I was newly a single mom. And I moved here with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old halfway across the country to start this new job at ABC. And I told you I hadn't gotten my hair cut in a long time. I'd been off the air for at least a month and a half at that point. And here I am about to go from being an anchor in a small town, Syracuse, New York, to being a reporter, and fill-in anchor was my title when I first got hired. And the #1 station in the 3rd largest city in America. And I had some big imposter syndrome going on. I was terrified. I didn't know if my skill set from that small market was going to match up with what was needed of me here. And step 1 is feeling good about how you look, right?
Yep.
So I had my day 1 dress, and I knew that I needed my day 1 haircut. And so I Googled expensive hairdressers in Chicago. And your name came up. It didn't say expensive, but it said, it talked about your experience and how you'd worked for Harpo. And,
Yep.
and I said, well, this guy's pretty pricey. He must be good. So I pricey for me at the time anyway, because I was unemployed up until like a week later. And so I booked my appointment, and I connected with you immediately. And I think my kids were with me too, because I think your assistant Kelsey was watching them while they ran around the salon.
Sure.
But you became my first friend after I uprooted my little family and I moved halfway across the country. It took no time at all, but that Google for expensive hairdressers in Chicago netted me my first friend.
That's
and then
amazing.
you introduced me to your wife, and she became my friend too. And you guys have become great family friends over the last decade plus.
Yeah.
So I love you very much, and I'm thankful for you.
I love you too, Tanya. Thank you.